What is good, defenders, and welcome to episode 373 of the most LAFC podcast on the internet. Yes, this is Defenders of the Bank, episode 373. My goodness, moving right along. And once again, congratulations to our friends at Heart of LAFC, whose next episode is 401, crossing the 400 mark. Appreciate you boys over there so much. Would have loved to appreciate more of what happened on the pitch at BMO, and we will break that down now. You know my voice. It's the Scarf, J.R. Liebert, coming to you live from Lawndale with some questionable lighting in the background. Haven't checked his background to see what's questionable there, but there's plenty of things that could be questionable in the background of one Chris Lafferty.
Good morning, JR. Yeah, I keep my background active so that this way it might distract viewers from some of the things that I say. From time to time, they're not always the brightest. But if you want to go with what's brightest, I'm looking at that, man, that sun behind you, dude. This is what we get for starting so late on a Saturday morning. The sun is up. It's saying, where have you been? But don't worry, defenders. We are here now, and we are ready to recap this game for you.
Yeah, good morning to everybody in the chat. Sorry for the late start tonight. Couple of things going on, but that's okay. We're all good. We're going to get through this. Something else that it looks like we're going to have to get through is whatever's going on with this offense right now. We look completely dead for the last three halves of play. Talking about, of course, the second half against Galaxy and this awful 90-minute performance at BMO Stadium where LAFC gets shut out by Portland 1-0. Yes, Maxime Crepeau had a very good game, and all props to our former black and gold mate between the pipes. But this is now the third shutout for LAFC at home this season, tying a team record that they last did in 2023. And I think what's most disappointing, Chris, is after this loss, they're really, with the exception of one or two moments in the match, seem to be very few signs of life from the attack.
Yeah, it was one thing we'll talk about more is I think a lot of it had to play into what Portland threw at us. It was different from anything we've seen all season. And I got to give Portland credit and give Phil Neville credit for everything that they concocted throughout the week to come at us because they gave us a formation that we've never seen before. And it was one that was pretty much almost impossible to penetrate at times. And I think that was their plan going into it. We talked about it on One More Sleep. Given the holes in our roster, they were going to look for somebody to just kind of be the one who slips through the cracks. And that's what it was for them. Somebody slipped through the cracks for their only goal. And they just did their best to not let us do anything and try to stifle us with their potent defense.
Yeah, look, I don't know if I'm there. If I'm being perfectly honest, I think LAFC has seen these clubs play low block after low block after low block. And I think what bothered me more than anything else wasn't that LAFC had a hard time cracking the low block because, yes, Portland did come out in a 5-4-1 and just sat very, very, very deep. And I think other than a couple of long shots from outside the box, Portland did absolutely nothing well offensively either. But I think what I didn't like seeing over the course of the 90 minutes is how few overlapping runs, how few line-cutting passes, how unoriginal the offense looked over the course of the entire 90 minutes. It was stagnant. It was predictable. Look, they're probably tired, right? They're probably exhausted right now from the schedule. I love that the transfer window has opened up now and that LAFC is going to get some reinforcements because that's absolutely what they need. I think there might be a couple of players who were playing for their jobs in this one that did not do very well for themselves at all. But I just think offensively, we can't just keep putting it on the back of Denis Bouanga. And I think tonight was an example of our Superman maybe accidentally leaving a little kryptonite in his pocket. He looked tired. He looked slow. He looked like his legs were dead, and who can blame him? He played a wonderful 30-plus minutes in the All-Star game, then had to fly back from Austin, then had to get a little bit of training in, and then just 2 days after he plays in the All-Star game, he has to play against Portland at home. So I think, look, if the rumors are true, it'll be nice, right? With Mathieu Chonier and potentially Colombian center back Alexis Perez. We could absolutely use a center back. We could absolutely use a midfielder. We could absolutely use a player the likes of Heung-min Son. I don't expect that to happen. Look, here's the bottom line, folks. There's something in his contract, I believe, this is true, that states that he must play at least 45 minutes in the 2 preseason matches for Tottenham Hotspur, which are both, by the way, in Korea. So the reason why they scheduled this is kind of a farewell tour for Heung-min Son to be able to go play in Korea in front of what must be incredible crowds for Tottenham there, with Son likely captaining and playing the first 45 minutes of each of those 2 matches. And those 2 matches, I believe, are July 31st and August 8th. July 31st and August 8th. So do not expect, first of all, do not expect anything about Heung-min Son for the next couple of weeks. And that's at best. But I do want to throw in one other thing here that I was looking at on our schedule. And I tweeted about this on our Twitter account. And I may have gotten the date wrong. It might be August 31st, September 1st. Here's the bottom line, folks. Heung-min Son is not coming during Leagues Cup. Leagues Cup, July 29th, August 1st, and August 5th. No possible way. He's not going to play at Chicago on August 9th if we sign him, because his run will be over August 8th. He is certainly not going to debut at the house that Tom Brady built August 16th when we play New England. And he's certainly not going to debut in Frisco, Texas, of all places, in August, which, by the way, that game is going to be 99 degrees off the pitch. I can't imagine what it's going to be like on the pitch. So when is our next home match against an MLS opponent? And who is it against? How about San Diego FC? That is going to be a fun one. LAFC taking on San Diego. I look, and I see Jose E6 in the chat saying, we can't wait that long for Son. Those last 2 League Cup games versus Pachuca and Tigres are no joke. I'm worried about all 3 Leagues Cup games, Chris Lafferty, but I don't care about Leagues Cup. Leagues Cup is a joke. It is a money grab. It is Don Garber's wet dream come true, and I can't stand Leagues Cup. So anybody out there who's hoping we really do well in Leagues Cup, why? What difference does it make? Yes, top 3, right, Chris Lafferty? Top 3 qualify for Champions League. Great. But come on. Who do you care about Leagues Cup, Chris?
Personally, I don't. And I've said it a bunch of times on here and in other avenues and in person, if anyone has talked to me. I don't care for it. I think it's a cash grab. Quite frankly, I think that the league just thinks that any fans, that Mexican league fans are lemmings who they think the league just thinks they can trot out games and that you'll just throw all of your money that you have onto them and they're just going to just milk you dry. I really think it's just that. I think that it's just them banking on, just offering something and then everybody will throw everything they have at it. I don't really care for the tournament. I think it was hastily thrown together in its first year, and then they didn't make any changes to improve it either. So I'm not a fan of Leagues Cup, and I think, quite frankly, having it in the middle of the season right now, not even the middle of the season, at this point in the season where we're at, where guys are starting to get wind down. Now you throw another freaking tournament in the mix. Like, what else? If you're trying to grow the game in America and you want to explain to your non-MLS fan friends why they should watch MLS, you look like a crazy person saying, oh, well, they have this, and then they have these games, and then they go to this cup, this copa, this cup, this. You look like an idiot trying to explain it because there's just so much going on, and all it does is just exhaust your guys, muddle it to the season, and then, quite frankly, burns out fans. So you're not going to have people who want to watch everything because this Leagues Cup was hastily thrown together, thrown in the worst part of the season, and it's going to take up way too much time and resources. And then No, to answer your question, no, I don't like Leagues Cup.
Listen, what Leagues Cup is great at is promoting Liga MX. I think
Yeah.
that has been the unintended consequence of Don Garber. Don Garber put this together so that MLS, excuse me, could play on a bigger stage, could play an international tournament, right? And it's been absolutely ridiculous because, number one, whether Don Garber wants to admit it or not, whether any soccer pundit wants to admit it or not, I think it's been proven over and over and over again between television numbers, between attendance numbers, between the appearance in the stands at many of these Leagues Cup matches around the United States, that even though all of these matches are being played in the United States, there are more Liga MX fans in the US than there are Major League Soccer fans. And maybe not of clubs like Mazatlan, but absolutely of clubs like Club America, Cruz Azul, Chivas de Guadalajara, Tigres, Pachuca, some of these clubs that we are playing. There are far more supporters of Liga MX in the United States than there are Major League Soccer supporters. I know that that might be blasphemy to hear, but I sat in our own stadium at BMO and saw 60 to 70% Club America fans at BMO Stadium when LAFC was playing them. I know what it means to these Liga MX fans, these supporters, these clubs. Mazatlan, I don't know how many people in the United States normally watch a Mazatlan game. Hell, I don't know how many people in Mexico normally watch a Mazatlan game. One of the newer Liga MX teams out there hasn't really garnered a big following. But I can tell you, if you put them up against a club the likes of LAFC, now all of a sudden, way more eyes are on Mazatlan than would have normally been. And we are not going to be converting any Mazatlan fans to now all of a sudden support LAFC. It's going to be, if anything, some LAFC supporters or some people that were on the fence about picking a club in MLS who may be of Mexican descent, but maybe not, who just love the beautiful game, that all of a sudden now they're like, hey, that Mazatlan club, that was fun. Unless we do what we need to do, like we did against Juarez last time out, beat them 7-1. We got to put a beating like that on Mazatlan. We have to play very well against Pachuca, and we really have to bring it against Tigres. Those Pachuca Tigres games are going to be rough. And I don't think we have the club. I don't think we have the energy. I don't think we have the will to do that right now over these next three matches. I do not like Leagues Cup. I am not here for it. I want to win every match that LAFC plays every single season. But I have to realistically look at what these next 12 Major League Soccer games are going to be like and how we can stay, A, in the top 4 to host a playoff game. B, can we realistically look at the Western Conference as even being in play anymore now that San Diego is back to being 10 points up and we only have 3 matches in hand? Do the math. We still lose even if we win all 3 matches. That's maybe what I want to prioritize over trying to get out of a really tough group and finishing top 3 in Leagues Cup.
Yeah, I mean, look, whether you like Leagues Cup or not, too, 3 additional matches at this point in the season with the roster, just the guys in the shape that they're in right now, it's the last thing we need. I would love to get back to CONCACAF, to Champions Cup, and I know that this is an avenue. And maybe because of the limited rosters for MLS teams in there, maybe I'm sorry, the limited number of spots for MLS teams in there, and maybe just given how competitive the rest of the league is, maybe this is the most viable option to get there. But if you're serious about having a league where your championship for your league actually means something and where your regular season actually means something, well, then we should stop burning guys out and just having all of these other opportunities for them to make. I think it kind of renders the MLS season meaningless in many ways. So that's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, look, it's hard to argue with how meaningless the MLS regular season seems to be. What, three-quarters of the league basically makes the playoffs anyway. So it's hard to argue against that. Let's get into our normal, usual suspects. That would be this day in LAFC history and some news and notes. Of course, we played the match on July 25th, 2025. And we do have one small news and note this day in LAFC history from July 25th. 2019, Carlos Vela named captain for the 2019 MLS All-Star Game versus Atletico Madrid. It would be the second straight year that Captain Carlos would have the armband in the All-Star Game. And of course, if you're listening to us today, July 26th, first of all, welcome. And again, thank you for joining us here on Defenders of the Bank, episode 373. Lots of news from that day in our LAFC history, including on the 26th in 2018, our maiden voyage in MLS. It was El Tráfico round 2, the first time ever at the bank, the first ever blackout game. I remember the scarves. I remember the stands. And I remember LAFC being up 2-0 going into the 82nd minute and squandering a late lead. 82nd minute, 86th minute, Galaxy score 2. Carlos Vela and Lee Win scoring in the first half. Of course, that game will be known for two things. One, Mark-Anthony Kaye breaking his ankle in that match in 2018. It really kind of threw our midfield in a lot of flux as we were pretty solid in the midfield until he broke his ankle. But everybody, and I mean everybody, remembers the backwards pass from Andre Horta that led to the second Galaxy goal. That led to a Galaxy goal. Andre Horta's inauspicious MLS debut, and it would be nothing but downhill for one Andre Horta, who would not last very long in black and gold. By the way, also on the 26th in 2018, that same day that we did we did tie Galaxy, Carlos Vela was named captain for the 2018 MLS All-Star Game, which was kind of neat. And then the following year, 26th of July, 2019, LAFC scored 4 goals in 12 minutes to defeat the defending champion Atlanta United 4-3 at the bank in what was one of the first heavyweight matches that LAFC had really ever played in. It was an incredible match with Adama Diomande, Diego Rossi, Carlos Vela, and Edward Atuesta all scoring in the first half. Eddie Segura decided to score for Atlanta in the second half, which was rather nice of him. And Carlos Vela's goal in that match tied him with Eric Cubo Torres for the most goals by a Mexican-born player in Major League Soccer, a record Carlos Vela would go on to Hulk smash over the course of his Major League Soccer career. That is this day in LAFC history. News and notes, there's not a whole ton. In fact, we just want to check in on our friends over in LAFC2, and they came from behind in dramatic fashion to beat VCFC, Ventura County Football Club, formerly Los Gros, Galaxy 2, on PKs after an incredible stoppage time goal brought it level in regulation 3-3 by DeCarlo Guerra in the 93rd minute. Jude Terry also scored in the 9th minute of that one, and then they win on PKs 3-1. If you don't have anything to do tomorrow, Sunday, July 27th, 7 p.m., head on out to Titan Stadium on the campus of Cal State Fullerton, where LAFC 2 will take on Sporting Kansas City 2. That's all the news and notes I got, other than a short-term contract that we'll talk about in just a little bit. And again, for all your Angel City needs, make sure you follow at Angel City Chicks on your social media platforms, because I hear they may eventually put out another podcast. Chris Lafferty, we head into BMO Stadium, match day 22 on the year in 5th place. Didn't do much to help ourselves. Portland being in 6th place, this could have been almost a good old-fashioned 6-pointer for them, and I think they took it far more seriously than we did. LAFC came in winning their last 3 home matches against Portland. That streak would come to an end. And look, this is already a team we've seen once this season, a 3-3 draw back in 2025, April 19th of 2025, where LAFC was down 2-0 and then came back to tie it at 2, then came back to tie it at 3. But man, All of that offense was missing in this one.
It was. I mean, we just couldn't get anything going. I talked about the defense for Portland earlier. You can credit that. I think a lot of it also goes hand in hand with our guys just. I look. I won't say they didn't try. We just couldn't get it to work last night. It wasn't there. Passes were off. Passing it right to opponents, trying to make interceptions or to catch a ball. We just couldn't get control of it. And it seemed like whenever we were near the ball, Portland had 3 or 4 guys to swarm our attackers and just make something happen. And that was kind of the story of the game as far as I saw. That was the most frustrating part. It was that Portland just seemed to always have an answer with their defense, and our offense just couldn't really force the issue on many occasions.
Yeah, I don't think we played well in this one. I don't think that's an analytical fact that I found by sleuthing and digging. I think it was terrible the way that we played in this match, and the inability for us to break down the low block was all that Portland needed. Portland was fine with sitting back, with countering. They weren't really pressing. I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that they were without 2 of their best offensive players in this match, with Anthony being out and with Cabecita, Jonathan Rodriguez, being out. Talk about 2 guys who can create for themselves at a moment's notice. Anthony had an incredible match against us last game. Felipe Mora, who did play in this match, was really nowhere to be found. Didn't do a whole lot after scoring a brace against us in our first meeting earlier in the year. It was as stagnant of an offensive performance by Portland as it was LAFC, because Portland was fine with sitting back. I think Portland would have been fine with a 0-0 draw in this one, the way that they were playing. But I will say, Portland put it on the back of Maxime Crepeau and that defense. And you got to think, staring across from the guy who replaced you, not just that, the guy who LAFC chose to replace you with. It really didn't come down, right, to performance issues with Maxime Crepeau. Maxime was fantastic in goal for LAFC. They would, however, have to start the season without Maxime if they chose to go with him again as their keeper. And I don't think LAFC wanted to have to do that. And so they bring in a guy the likes of Hugo Lloris. And I think if anybody's watched LAFC this season, the one thing that stands out for you more than almost anything else is guys still got a lot left in the tank. Hugo Lloris is special. But Maxime Crepeau, staring across from him for 90 minutes, all that had to do was create more and more reason that Maxime Crepeau wanted to show up and show out for Portland. And that he certainly did for Phil Neville's side. Let's get into the lineups for this match, and then we can talk about everything that happened and didn't happen over the course of 90 minutes. Maxime Crepeau in goal, Juan Mosquera, Finn Sermon, Kamal Miller, Jimmer Forey, and Ian Smith, all on the back line. That is a back line of 5. That was very tough for LAFC to break down for sure. In the midfield, Santiago Moreno, Christian Paredes, David Ayala, and David Da Costa. And of course, the tip of that diamond there, the tip of the spear for Portland, was Felipe Mora. In the 18, I forgot to update my notes here. Portland did have a bunch of guys come in the 18. It would have helped if I would have updated my notes on that one, but I didn't. So let's talk about the guys who came on for LAFC.
Yeah, and nothing but love for those guys from Portland that came in. Sorry I don't know your names. Anyway, look, for LAFC, we came out in a 4-3-3. We had our goalkeeper, Hugo Lloris, in between the pipes, as we normally do, and is the only decision that I think we should ever make. Up front, and right in front of him, we had Artem Smolyakov, who I thought had a really good game. We had Nkosi Tafari, Kenny Nielsen making his debut for MLS, wearing the patch there, his MLS debut patch, and a very impressive game, which we'll have a lot more to talk about later. And our old pal Ryan Hollingshead as well in the back 4. In the midfield, we had the usual suspects, Marky Delgado, Igor Jesus, and Timothy Tillman. Up front, we went with the front 3 of Bawanga, the old razzle-dazzle himself, Nathan Ordaz, and Javiero Del Rosen, who Godspeed, my friend. We enjoyed having you.
I
Coming
think.
in on.
Sorry,
Oh, sorry,
go
man.
ahead.
Yeah, I just
Say
wanted to
it.
throw the rest of the 18 there. I see. I took a moment because I was just kind of reminiscing. I like Bill Rosen, so I had a little moment for my man there. Anyway, in the 18, we had a Bogusi, Martinez, Amaya, and Yaboa all coming in to see action. And we had two players on short-term contracts from LAFC too. There was Josh Santiago and Eric Diaz. Santiago wears number 62, and Diaz wears number 55.
Yeah, look, I thought the most savage thing of the night, unintentionally, I think, was Steve Cherundolo's answer
Oh, there you go.
about
Yeah.
Javiero Del Rosen, where somebody in the press conference, rightfully so, asked, like, so what about Javiero? Like, you extended the loan for a day? Is there anything more going on? And he looked at his watch and he said, yeah, Javiero's got about an hour and 55
55
minutes
minutes.
still to be with the club, so he can enjoy the rest of the night with the club, and then he becomes our rival once again. And I was like, damn, I don't think he realizes how savage that was. Like, I know that Javiero probably knew going into this, right, that unless maybe he puts up a hat trick, right, and LAFC goes, oh crap, all right, maybe we got to figure something out here. He's figured out our offense. He looks good with Denis or Daz or whatever, right? Obviously, that didn't happen. I thought it was not a great game from Javiero Del Rosen at all, except for one really nice pass in the second half. But that being said, to look at your watch before you answer the question and go, yeah, Cinderella turns into a pumpkin in an hour and 55. So find that glass slipper. You're out of here, bud. Like that was kind of savage, Steve. That was for a guy who
I
knows.
didn't take it that way.
Oh man, for a guy, look, he knows he's sitting on a hot seat, right? He knows he's leaving at the end of the year anyway. This is like the weirdest combination of like a lame duck coach who's also not coaching well sometimes. But by the way, we had lost just once in our last 14 MLS regular season matches, right? So like the hot seat is hot because LAFC hasn't played well at times, but then again, we've lost once in 14 league matches. So I get it, right? All the Dolo people are like, yeah, he should be gone already. The players already know they're not playing for him, everything else. Some of y'all may be right. I don't necessarily disagree with a lot of that sentiment, especially if we continue to play the way we played in the second half against Galaxy, the way we played in both halves against Portland. I hear you. I hear you. And I know I'm making Chris Lafferty upset because he's ready to defend Steve Cherundolo right now. I'm just saying, I think there's...
And with good reason. With good reason, too. But go ahead.
I hear you, but I think there's a little bit of truth to all of those things, right? There may be some players who know that Dolo won't be back next year. But in my opinion, then what I would do is play harder, because when we bring in Big Ange, if Postacoglu's the guy to come in, or if we bring in somebody else, you want the tape to show that you're a badass and you're a baller. So you want to get out there and do the very best you can. I'm not saying I agree with all the Dolo out people, but you have to think that it needs a little bit of zhuzhing for sure right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, what we're seeing were the last two games where things just fell flat. I mean, obviously we put up 3 against the Galaxy, but they fell flat in the last 20 minutes of the game. Then last night was just a big old nothing burger that we ate. I think, but here's what I'll say. And Steve mentioned it too. You know, you can see it in the looks of some of these guys' faces. Is that look? They're humans and they're tired. Some of them. I know, and I hear from people who go, "Oh, well, they're professional athletes. This is their job to do this. This is their job to perform. It's their job to give 100% in their performance, and their 100% now may not be the same that 100% was 2-3 months ago when they were fresh and in early season form. They've played 25 something matches already, so there is going to be fatigue that sets in. They're human. They try to reset. You have just a few days of turnaround, and then you can't expect them to be perfect. But I'm not saying that the effort isn't there. So I don't think that it's. I think there is a lot of truth to the fact that yes, Steve there have been some things that I haven't liked about him, specifically in the Galaxy match last week. And I think that's some of those problems there we'd seen at other points throughout the year. But also, I can't stand the blame or putting 100% of the blame on Steve Cherundolo for things when it's the fact that these are the dog days of the season right here. Guys are going to be fatigued, and it's going to show. And if you think you can do better and that you can, show what, playing 40 plus games in a regular season, if you can do that, God bless you. But I just don't see it where we should be putting all the blame on Steve. I just don't buy into that at all.
Look, it is our 32nd match of the year across all competitions, right? 32nd match of the year. And we all can rail on how terrible MLS's salary structure is and MLS's roster composition structure is. All of those things are terrible. The travel, the actual timing of a lot of these games, the lack of a real off season to actually be off for a month or two, which I think would be helpful. I do again, though. I look at our offense in this one and I just wonder, almost no overlapping runs, almost no cutting through the box and making yourself dangerous. Nathan Ordaz is probing at times, but I don't think he's as aggressive maybe sometimes with some runs as he needs to be. Denis Bouanga just looked tired in this one. You're absolutely right. I thought that Denis just didn't have it in his legs, and that's not something Steve Cherundolo can control. Unless apparently he's Jorge Mas from Inter Miami and tells his two players, just don't show up, guys. It's okay. Just don't show up to the All-Star game. And then they get an extra break by not playing in this one, which, by the way, it's the rules. I get it. But Lionel Messi did play all 90 minutes of all 9 matches in July leading up to the All-Star game. It's not like he subbed on for a couple. He played all 90 in all 9 matches at his age in July. So I'm not upset that Lionel Messi skipped the All-Star game. I'm upset at Don Garber for withholding the information so that they would sell as many All-Star game tickets as humanly possible for as high of a price as they could until the very last minute and then be like, oh, yeah, guys, Messi's not showing up. Either way. I think that's kind of funny. But in the first half, look, let's get into the actual match, right? In the first half, you had 2 saves from Ugo, doing everything that we needed him to do. We had that easy save on Santi Moreno in the 13th minute. It was an awkward bounce. And that was the only danger until the final minute of the half. We saw Artem Smolyakov. Look, he tried that banger from distance again. And this one, again, not a terrible effort. It's not like it went into the 39th row of the south end there. He did curl it just over and wide of that top corner. I do appreciate Artem Smolyakov trying to keep people honest from distance, just a little too much distance on that one from Artem. And then everything changes in the final minute of the half. I didn't think there would be much stoppage time at all. In fact, there was no stoppage time. There was just time to let Portland celebrate this goal, kick it off, and then touch the ball a couple times until you had the end of the half. David Ayala was given far too much space at the top of the box. I did not understand why. And in my opinion, Portland's 2 best chances, other than the corner kick that we are about to talk about, Portland's 2 best chances came on giving players far too much space from outside the top of the box. David Ayala took a couple of touches, fired one low and at the corner of the goal, diving save by Ugo for his second save of the half. But unfortunately, they pushed the ball. Ugo pushes the ball out of bounds, which leads to a corner kick. And it's the ensuing corner kick that goes all wrong for LAFC. No one, and I mean no one, was within 5 yards of Christian Paredes at the start of this play. Go back and watch. Just watch number 17. Number 17 is sitting down, having a sandwich. I think he called his mom just to say hi from the middle of the match, and then stands up, decides, okay, I'm going to run to this part of the 18, and is able to go wherever he wants, tiptoeing through the tulips in the 18. And Nkosi Tafari is late on his spot again. Nkosi Tafari was late on his spot on the 3rd goal for Carson in that 3-3 match. Just watch it. He gets beat to the spot by Maya Yoshida. Well, in this one, he gets beat to the spot by Christian Paredes. There's nothing that Ugo can do. It's actually a perfectly placed ball in between Timothy Tillman, who was on that far post, and Ugo Lloris, who was right in the middle where he needed to be. Nkosi Tafari with an awful first half, and it wouldn't get much better in the second half, at least in my opinion. I think Chris Lafferty disagrees with me a little bit on this. But that's the last basically touch of the first half, Chris Lafferty, and we go in down 1-0.
Yeah, and one of those goals where you're just like, we couldn't have gotten out of the half. It just seemed like I felt like maybe we were, at least I was hoping that the ref would have just blown the whistle already, and that it was like that wasn't going to happen, or that didn't happen. I think I was already in halftime at that point, and well, maybe that kind of lapse is not on my part, but partly to blame for others who just weren't able to get the mark on him. And it just, look, it was unfortunate, and it was one of those goals where I went back and I looked at it and I said, damn, that was just like you said, put in the perfect position. We had Tillman on that far post, but where he was compared to where the ball went, it was just way too up high. He would have had to thrown a handball up in there and swatted that away if he had any chance of that. So he really wasn't a factor, even though that's where he was positioned up at. And for Hugo, it was just way too far over for him. I mean, like, he was covering where the majority of the bodies were, rightfully so. I don't even think he could see it, and I also don't think he was expecting to have somebody just completely untouched and ready to shoot like they were. So it was just kind of the wheels just fell off for a second, and well, that bit us with the 1-0 goal for Portland as we went into the half. Kind of took a little bit of the wind out of the sails for us, but you would hope that coming back out, we'd put something together, and we'd at least have a better idea of what we can do to mount a comeback.
Yeah, by the way, about 25 minutes ago while we are recording, they did post the part of our history, Javier Del Rosen post. Thank you, Ruben, for alerting us to that. Yeah, Carlos Vela hasn't had one yet, I don't think, right? Because he's not technically part of our history now. He's like club ambassador. He's doing different things for the club. By the way, Philly's the one I think that told me about this. Was it Philly or I don't know. I don't know who it was. The ghost of Alejandro Guido is back. How did I not mention this at the top of the show? Alejandro Guido is now coaching in the LAFC Academy, folks. He's the head coach of I think it's the U18s. I got to go back and look. A player who we absolutely love on this show, Alejandro Guido. How cool is that he's back? Sorry, Squirrel. Forgot to mention that at the top of the broadcast. So that's something we wanted to do. Look, if you go back and you look at the 55, 56-minute mark, LAFC had their best chance for sure. Artem Smolyakov, Denis Bouanga, and Mark Delgado finally with a little three-man combination, a little something there on the left side, maybe a nice little wrinkle thrown in there by Steve. And I really liked that it's Artem Smolyakov, by the way. You would think with Artem, Denis, and Marky Delgado, the guy who doesn't play on the offensive side of the ball very often would be Artem Smolyakov, but he's the one who streaks in from that left side, his cross finding Nathan Ordaz beautifully. Ordaz goes to ground, takes the shot, does everything that he needs to do. Maxime just made himself big. Maxime made a great save. Also, by the way, took out Nathan Ordaz in the process. Not a foul or anything there. Like, that's just that's two players occupying the same phone booth worth of space. Ryan Hollingshead's attempt was blocked right after, but a little bit of life. And you're thinking after the half, Lafferty, you got 10 minutes in, you have one really nice chance at goal, and you're thinking, okay, this could be the start of something. Maybe Steve has kind of pulled the right strings, pushed the right buttons. Maybe we'll get something out of this here in the second half. The answer would be that we wouldn't, but this was clearly their best offensive attempt of the night.
It was. I think we started to see a few guys get a little crisper as well. Del Rosen, while he didn't have the best first half, I think he created more opportunities in the second half. He did create. He had some shots which were some were impressive. Some just you knew weren't going to go in, but at least we're starting to get something in on him, right? And hopefully that something will break the dam as long as you just keep taking the shots. And I think that was kind of the MO of Artem Smolyakov, where he the guy who his only goal this year against San Diego was one where he just ripped it from kind of where like the benches were. And he just was afraid to say, hey, you know what? I got it. I don't see a pass. I'm just going to send it. And it went in. And that's been most of his shots throughout the season, where him just saying, screw it, here we go. And, putting them up and seeing what happens. And I think that he took 3 beautiful shots last night. All of that were, if those are gonna score, it's gonna be because you caught the keeper off guard. Uh, some of them just weren't online, and the others Maxime was ready for. But I love what Smolyakov was bringing to the table, because when you have such a condensed defense like Portland brought with that low block, if you're going to have a guy from well outside the 18 just ripping shots off, you're going to force them to spread out a little bit more, and hopefully that'll open up some lanes and some other chances, and for us to slip through their cracks and get one in on them there. So I loved what I saw from Smolyakov. I think he's in a small way making our offense try to be more dynamic, and more opportunistic, and create more chances for everybody by spreading it out. I loved his game. I just wish he was rewarded with a goal for one.
Yeah, no, Artem played very, very well, I think, last night. You mentioned Dilrosun just before the hour mark. He has a nice little move inside the box, transfers, fires it over to that left foot, and it's just wide of the goal. I thought, oh, that would be pretty cool if he gets that one. It was just wide. Maxime saw it all the way. I'm not sure he would have got to it if it was a little higher of a shot, but either way. And then again, the only options for the night, the only good offensive plays of the night for Portland was one in the first half, and now one here in the second half in the 64th minute, where David DaCosta is able to wind up from the top of the box, and Ugo has to make another diving save. Ugo saw everything both times. He made the save both times, did everything he needed to do. That was the only real danger all night, other than that one set piece from Portland. And that's what makes it so frustrating, is that LAFC pretty much, without starting center backs, with a patchwork lineup out there on defense, did what they wanted to do defensively with Portland. They kept a lot of danger away. It's not like there were unmarked men running freely up and down the pitch all night. In fact, the only one was Christian Paredes on that header. I thought that LAFC played pretty well defensively. I thought our offense gave us absolutely nothing. When Jeremy Abobasi and David Martinez come on in the 74th minute for Igor Jesus and Nathan Ordaz, they added nothing to the match. The player who, and again, everyone should be talking about after this match for LAFC, is by far the debutant himself, Kenny Nielsen. Because, I'm sorry, in the stadium, when Kenny Nielsen got on his bike and tried that in the 18 with a defender on his back, this place went nuts last night when Kenny Nielsen gave that a go. They showed it a couple of times on the replay board. It was electric. And let's be real, right, Lafferty? This ball, after Nielsen makes perfect contact with it, this ball hits a defender's head, Maxime Crepeau's finger, and the crossbar. Otherwise, I mean, honestly, he's still almost scored the damn thing, and it hit 3 things after hitting his foot. It was unbelievable. Look, we haven't done our wait what moment in quite a while, but I promise you this. That was absolutely the most incredible, most fun moment of the match, in a match that just absolutely sucked. I can tell you this. I left BMO Stadium at least thinking about visions of Kenny Nielsen and that bicycle kick in my head as I left. Kudos to you, kid. Number 45, Kenny Nielsen, the former Jesuit Ivy Georgetown Hoya himself. I was smiling so hard talking about Kenny Nielsen after that match last night.
Man, he went in there and is like, I'm going to bulldog these bros like I'm a Georgetown Hoya. This is just, it was it was so electrifying in a match that just seemed so doled down, and it felt like we were playing with weighted shoes on last night. It was just nothing could get going, and then here's this opportunity that out of nowhere for this electrifying bicycle kick that we've seen players this year attempt a bicycle kick, uh, but they go wide, like they're sailing far over the crossbar. You knew they had no chance, but it was like, oh well, good effort. We saw Olivier Giroud attempt one. It just, like I said, didn't connect. But it was like, oh, that was really cool. This was the first time that we saw one that was like, wow, that should have gone in, and it just made everybody jump. I jumped out of my seat and ran down. There was like 5 or 6 seats that were empty next to me, and I needed all of that space to just process whatever was going on with my body at that moment. But like you said, it hit the defender, which I think sent the ball higher than it was going to go normally, and it sent it right at Maxime's, like right at his hand. And I think that if it doesn't hit that initial defender first, it stays lower than the crossbar and it goes to Maxime's right, which makes it harder. Which, I mean, not that it would have been impossible for him to save. I think he still would have had a good chance at saving it, but it would have put him off balance instead of having to go right at him. And I think that would have given him a better opportunity, and the crossbar wouldn't have been at play. So just that tiny little, game of inches where buzzing that guy's forehead or buzzing the guy's top of that head is what made the difference between the most electrifying what would have been and the most electrifying goal. So, but either way, Ryan Hollingshead mentioned this in the press conference. This team has that next man up mentality. We talked about it in One More Sleep. We were going to have a depleted back line, and it was going to take next man up. So here comes this dude from LAFC 2 who earns himself a spot starting in this game, plays the entire match, and showed up as arguably the best player on the team for the match. So talk about next man up. Kenny Nielsen, my dog.
And by the way, Kenny Nielsen was signed from LAFC 2 at the start of our season, March 11th, 2025. Kenny Nielsen signs with LAFC. So this isn't a player that was brought up on a short-term loan. This isn't a player who, look, he's played with LAFC 2 a bunch this season for sure. But he is a member of the first team roster, signed through 2025 with options for 2026 and 2027. All I'm saying is LAFC, you might have to pick up that option for at least 2026 and see what you got. Look, Frankie Amaya and Yayaboa come on in the 90th minute for Timothy Tillman, and Artem Smolyakov didn't have nearly enough time or enough presence on the ball to do anything. The match ends 1-0. It's awful. We're all upset. We're all leaving. But let's take another quick second to talk about Kenny Nielsen, because there's more about how good his debut was. He wasn't just good with the most fun moment, the wait what moment of the match for sure with the bicycle kick, or, by the way, being assertive on the back line through the course of all 90 minutes, because he started and played all 90 damn minutes. So proud of this kid. But let's talk about a couple of things that maybe didn't jump out at you, but I had to figure out after the match. He completed a game-high 98 passes. A game-high 98 passes, and he did so on 93% accuracy. In starting the match, he becomes just the 4th LAFC draft pick ever from the MLS Super Draft. Tristan Blackman, Joao Moutinho, and Peter Lee Vassell to start matches for LAFC. And he's the first player drafted since 2020 to start a match or to even play for LAFC. We haven't drafted a guy since COVID that's played for LAFC. Think about that for a minute. Only guys drafted in 18-19. That's unbelievable. And I think Kenny Nielsen, again, man of the match scarf for sure for Kenny Nielsen. And again, so proud of him on his debut. Not sure that this is sustainable over like a 34-match MLS season, but you'd certainly like to have guys like him on your bench that you can bring up and that now have shown you they can do well. I think, again, the other player that you and I both talked about after last night, Lafferty, when you and I were talking, was Artem Smolyakov.
Yeah, look, if we're going to give the man of the match scarf to Kenny Nielsen, I think we should give the man of the match Zippy Paws giveaway scarf that they had last night to Artem Smolyakov. I think, look, he definitely, I knew you'd like that. He definitely, he earned it a lot last night. He was another guy who stepped up when we needed somebody big. The effort and the ferociousness that we saw from them last night. They were on everything. They were aggressive. They were making things happen. They were standing up to guys. I really loved what they brought, not just in terms of performance, but I think also in terms of the grit that we needed to see, and just in terms of guys who would fight back, in a tight 1-0 match. I think that you need guys who they're not just going to get stressed or worried or complain like, oh, why is the ref not calling a shove on Ryan Hollingshead when he's in midair in the box? Sorry, that was one of my biggest complaints of the night was the officials. But but they didn't let those things get to them. They just kept their head focused. They kept their head down, and they just stayed with their eyes on the prize and did their jobs and set their teammates up for success throughout the rest of the match. So, yeah, I want to give a lot of credit to Artem Smolyakov, a player for us who's kind of flown under the radar a lot. But I think now, in this point in the season, when you do have guys who are very fatigued, and you have somebody who hasn't played as many minutes in a person like Artem Smolyakov, give him the opportunity with those fresher legs and the incentive of knowing that, hey, we're bringing guys in. If you want to continue to play and to showcase yourself, you're going to really have to impress us. And so he's doing both of those things.
And look, Sergio Palencia trying to get his green card in Spain. That's the reason why Artem starts in this one. The midfield just looked lost to me the entire match. I wonder if that 5-2-3 rattled Igor Jesus a little bit, as Igor was the guy to come out. Timothy Tillman and Mark Delgado were the ones that started. So Jesus just hasn't looked good since that. He's maybe a little tired, by the way, too. I mean, hell, I thought that the most disappointing performance for me wasn't Jesus, wasn't Mark Delgado, who I didn't think was very good at all in this one either, although FOTMob says he was very good. But I was there and watching the match, and I don't know. Maybe I didn't see it the same way they did. But I was most disappointed in Kosi Tafari. I thought this was going to be his moment where he could step up and really show his leadership skills, not just the fact that sometimes he's 6'4" and wins headers inside the box. But I didn't see a ton of that from him, which was a bummer. But that being said, I don't think – I mean, look, we've talked for almost an hour on a match that I didn't even want to be there for some of the hours that I was there at BMO Stadium. Look, we know we're going into Leagues Cup, folks, and we are going to have a ton of Leagues Cup coverage starting with Monday night against Mazatlan. We will have our one more sleep as we play Mazatlan Tuesday, July 29th, Friday, August 1st against Pachuca, and Tuesday, August 5th against Tigres. All of these matches at BMO Stadium. It's Leagues Cup time. It's our least favorite time of the year, but we will do full breakdowns of Mazatlan, Pachuca, and Tigres before. It is going to be a busy schedule, folks, because we will record on Monday night for one more sleep. We will have the match on Tuesday, the episode on Wednesday, one more sleep again on Thursday, a match again on Friday, an episode again on Saturday. Maybe we get to sleep in and come up for air on Sunday, but then on Monday, it's time for another one more sleep, August 4th. Tuesday, the match, August 5th. Another episode, August 6th. And then we'll hopefully be done with this Leagues Cup garbage. Chris Lafferty, I got to tell you, we got our work cut out for us over the next couple of weeks, my friend. I think Philly will be back on a couple of pods too. But I just want to say again, thank you so much for joining me again on episode 373 of Defenders.
You're welcome. And thank you for allowing me to be on here with you. And thank you to everybody who was with us today in the chat. We do have a ton of episodes coming up in between then, and then it's not like after Leagues Cup we got to rest, because then you and I are hopping on flights and heading out to Chicago to continue our regular season coverage. We're going to be at my old stomping grounds, my old home, SeatGeek Stadium in Bridgeview, Illinois, for that match. I know. But I'm going
Wanted
to
to go
show
to
you guys
Soldier
around.
Field, damn it.
Well, it's either way. Thanks again for having me. Just want to give a shout out, and hey, and look, I rag on the League's Cup, but I'll say this: if
Sucks.
LAFC is playing your team, like your Liga MX team, or you're watching their match, I sincerely am happy that for some people they get to see their two clubs matching up. I think that's very cool. For me, I don't have a horse in the race down there, so maybe that's why my opinion is what it is. But for anybody who enjoys it, I'm happy for you. I gave my reasons why I don't like the League's Cup. But yeah, best of luck to everybody, and I don't know. I just hope you all have fun. It's the whole point of this darn thing.
Yeah, Juan in the chat is asking, is the Chicago game happening? Feels too close to the game versus Tigres. Denis Bouanga played at an all-star game and 2 days later played in Austin. We've played matches almost back to back on some days. You think Don Garber? No, I almost swore. Anyways, no. Yeah, I think the match is happening unless, I don't know, somehow LAFC advances out of this whole thing. You guys, thank you so much. And you know how we like to end each and every one of these episodes. Oh, wait. There we go. There's the click.
Yeah. Bye-bye.
Bye.